Welcome back to my channel. The courthouse didn't look like the beginning of a war. From the outside, it was nothing more than stone, glass, and granite steps polished by decades of everyday conflicts, custody disputes, property squabbles, neighbor complaints, signatures no one remembered signing. But today was different. Today wasn't routine. Today wasn't procedural. Today was historic. Because today, the Brown family was no longer a reality TV dynasty. They were a legal case, one carrying 10 years of resentment, fractured promises, financial secrets, and emotional debts heavier than any contract TLC ever filmed. The automatic doors slid open with a cold, indifferent hiss. Behind them, cameras detonated in flashes. Fans, gossip bloggers, live streamers, all crowding for a glimpse of the once untouchable family now walking into judgment. Kody entered first. The hair was familiar. The confidence? Gone, drained like someone finally facing the consequences he never expected to meet. A bailiff's voice sliced through the tension. All rise for the Honorable Judge Montgomery. The entire room rose as one, a living portrait of broken history forced back into the same frame. Judge Montgomery stepped in. Black robes. Steel calm eyes. A neutrality so sharp it was both fairness and threat. Be seated. Chairs exhaled. So did years of trapped truth. At the prosecution table sat the four women who once shared a life, a belief system, and a man. Now they shared only disillusionment and a united purpose. Beside them stood Lydia Harding, a lawyer feared for one thing. She cuts lies clean down the middle and leaves the bones in the light. Across the aisle, Kody's legal team sat like professionals pretending not to panic. Judge Montgomery folded her hands. We are here regarding the petition filed by Christine, Janelle, Mary, and Robin Brown. Even the air stilled. Alleging financial misconduct, unauthorized property decisions, and disputed signatures related to shared assets. Ms. Harding, is the prosecution prepared? Harding rose. The courtroom leaned in. The opening strike, her voice was calm, controlled, the kind of calm that destroys. Your Honor, today we are not litigating love. We are not debating marriage. We are here to examine facts, numbers, signatures, contracts, and whether consent was truly given or merely performed. She stepped toward the defense table. The plaintiffs entered plural marriage with the promise of shared contribution and equal partnership. Publicly and privately, they were told assets, labor, and investments were for the family. A beat. But evidence will show that the definition of family changed depending on who benefited. A wave of whispers swept the gallery. One sharp look from the judge killed them instantly. We will prove that land ownership was altered without full consent. We will prove that family income was redirected into private accounts. We will prove that signatures do not match the handwriting of the women who supposedly signed them. And most importantly, we will prove that consent was scripted, not lived. Christine's breath trembled, not in fear, but in recognition. Janelle didn't move, but the stillness was a statement of its own. Judge Montgomery leaned forward. Ms. Harding, are you alleging forgery? Harding inhaled slow, controlled,
deadly.
We are alleging that consent was documented, but not given. Kody snapped. This is insane. I built a future for this family. Christine rose, uninvited.
No.
You built a future where you decided who counted as family. Janelle added, her voice low and precise. And the rest of us paid for it. Literally. Kody froze. Words failed him because somewhere underneath the ego, he knew. The signature shock. Harding kept going. This court will review business profits, expense allocations, withdrawal logs, asset sheltering, mortgage responsibility, and the movement of communal funds into accounts undisclosed to legal stakeholders. Robin flinched. Mary finally spoke. So we paid into wallets we weren't even allowed to open. The judge nodded. Proceed. Harding lifted a sealed exhibit. We will also show recordings of conversations, private, selective conversations. She looked directly at Kody. And those recordings will be played in this courtroom. Silence shattered into pure electricity. Christine murmured to Janelle. He wanted unity. Now he'll get it, just not the kind he planned. The expert's testimony, a forensic handwriting expert, took the stand. Harding launched. To confirm, the signatures labeled as belonging to Mary Brown and Janelle Brown were not written by them? Correct. And the probability that they authored them? Less than 0.3%. The gallery reacted like they'd been struck. Kody's attorney bolted up. Objection. The expert is inferring intent. Harding turned unbothered. He is not inferring intent, Your Honor. Only authenticity. Objection overruled. Harding stepped closer. And were these signatures written in the same session? The expert adjusted his glasses. No. Different pressure patterns. Different ink absorption. One written quickly. One slow, deliberate. Likely someone attempting to mimic the handwriting, but unable to replicate it. The next question cut through the room like the clean edge of a blade. Could one person have written both signatures? Cole didn't blink. Yes. But not the people named. The courtroom bent under the weight of that implication. Christine leaned forward, the rage inside her rearranging itself into something fierce and vindicating. Janelle's jaw didn't simply tighten. It locked, like justice itself had finally entered the room. Mary stared at the forged signatures the way someone reads a betrayal written in familiar handwriting. And Robin looked small. Not guilty. Not innocent. Just cornered. By truth, by gravity, by the collapse of a story she thought she understood. Christine didn't breathe. She sharpened. Kody shot up before his attorneys could stop him. This was for the family. Mr. Patel, the forensic accountant, blinked once. The accounts were labeled as household-specific discretionary use. No documentation identifies them as shared family funds. Christine whispered, loud enough to cut. How convenient. Judge Montgomery snapped her gaze to Kody. Mr. Brown, sit down or be held in contempt. Silence chained him more tightly than handcuffs ever could. Miss Harding stepped forward again, voice slicing with precision. Mr. Patel, did family income ever flow directly into these undisclosed accounts? Yes. On multiple occasions. And can you tell the court the approximate percentage of total family-generated revenue deposited into those accounts over a 5-year period? He didn't hesitate. 23.8%. Almost a quarter. Even the math gasped. The courtroom felt it. Judge Montgomery turned another page in her binder, assembling judgment one fact at a time. Miss Harding delivered the session-ending blow. Your Honor, we have now established 2 facts this court cannot overlook. Consent was documented, but not given. Money was shared, but knowledge was not. The question before this court is no longer whether there were mistakes, but whether there was design. For a moment, the courtroom wasn't a courtroom. It was ground zero, the birth of consequences. Kody's attorney jumped up, voice tight. The defense requests an immediate recess to recalibrate counsel strategy. Judge Montgomery considered, then struck her gavel. Recess granted. 15 minutes. The room dissolved into whispers, panic, and quiet collapse. Christine turned to Janelle. We came here thinking we were dividing land. Janelle shook her head slowly. No. Turns out we were dividing truth from performance. Mary exhaled, and the sound was armor clicking into place. And lies don't get half custody in a courtroom. Robin stood frozen, suspended between alliances she no longer recognized. Kody walked past the women without looking at them. And for the first time in years, none of them watched him leave. They watched the evidence. Because evidence doesn't ask for loyalty. It doesn't plead. It doesn't perform. It just reveals. And today it was revealing everything. They say a courtroom has no heart, just wood, law books, sealed envelopes, and rules that don't care about feelings. But they never tell you this. Sometimes the truth walks in on its own 2 feet. Your Honor, Harding said, the prosecution calls Mrs. Mary Brown to the stand. The room shifted instantly, chairs stilling, air sharpening, anticipation coiling tight. Even the cameras outside, though blind to the moment, felt the tremor. Mary stood. Not rushing, not trembling, not performing. Walking like someone stepping directly into the moment where her silence expired. She didn't look at Kody. She didn't look at Christine, Janelle, or Robin. She didn't look at the crowd. She looked straight at the judge and placed her hand on the Bible before anyone asked. Not for ritual, for symbolism. I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Her voice didn't tremble. That alone hit harder than any evidence. Miss Harding began gently. Mrs. Brown, how long were you part of this family structure? Mary didn't answer like someone counting years. She answered like someone who survived them. Long enough to forget there was a world outside of it. The courtroom inhaled. And how were major financial decisions communicated to you during your marriage to Mr. Brown? Mary blinked once, measured, exhausted, honest. As family decisions. That's what we were told. Not business decisions. Not financial decisions. Not legal strategies. Just family decisions. And who presented these decisions? Kody. Harding stepped closer. And were you ever given independent contracts to review before signing? Something in Mary's face shifted. Not anger. Not sadness. Recognition.
No.
We were given explanations, not contracts. And did those explanations include full financial disclosures? Mary tilted her head, a tiny movement filled with decades.
No.
They included trust. The word hit like a verdict. Kody shifted, irritated not by the lie, but by the accuracy. Harding pressed forward. Mrs. Brown, were you aware of any financial accounts created using family income that were not disclosed to all spouses? A soft breath escaped Mary, years compressed into one sound. Yes. And when did you discover them? Far too late. The courtroom stilled. Mary continued. I didn't know we were supposed to check. I didn't know there was something to check. Because we were told transparency was built in. That the structure protected us. That love and responsibility were shared equally. Her voice sharpened. It wasn't. Harding returned with a folder labeled Exhibit 18C, pre-signed asset clauses. Mrs. Brown, do you recognize these documents? Mary looked, really looked, like someone staring at the paperwork that once disguised itself as family. Yes. And do you recall signing these? Her jaw tightened. Not defensive, recalculating. I recall being told to sign them. Were you given time to review them or consult outside counsel?
No.
What were you told these documents represented? Mary recited it like muscle memory. Unity. Equality.
Protection for the family.
And what did they actually represent? Mary turned a page. Her eyes locked on the truth she had once trusted blindly. A surrender. Kody's attorney tore to his feet. Objection. The witness is characterizing. Harding didn't even blink. She is describing her understanding of contracts she signed without disclosure. That is context, not characterization. Judge Montgomery. Overruled. The witness may continue. And she did. When I signed these, I thought I was signing into a family. Her voice thickened, but didn't break. What I was really signing was out of leverage. Silence ricocheted across the courtroom. Then Mary delivered the sentence that rewrote the entire case. I wasn't a wife with rights. I was a placeholder with paperwork.
Seismic.
There were no gasps. Not because the moment wasn't shocking, but because no one in that courtroom knew how to interrupt a truth that raw. Miss Harding let the silence work. Let the admissions settle like dust after an explosion. Then, Mrs. Brown, did you ever directly ask Mr. Brown for full financial transparency? Mary let out a single, humorless laugh. Not amused, recognizing. That conversation had a trapdoor. Harding tilted her head. What do you mean? Mary's answer lifted the room forward like gravity had a direction. When money was questioned, loyalty was questioned back. A ripple, not sound understanding. So financial questions, Harding continued, were treated as personal betrayal? Mary didn't nod big. She didn't need to. Not treated that way. Framed that way. That was the moment Kody detonated from his seat. That is absolutely untrue. Judge Montgomery didn't flinch.
Seat. Down.
Mr. Brown. He sat. But the damage?
Already permanent.
Harding shifted her tone, soft, but sharpened to surgical precision. Mrs. Brown, did you ever believe you would one day testify against your own family? Mary smiled a little.
Sut.
Awake.
No.
I thought I would defend it forever. And what changed? For the first time all day, Mary looked directly at Kody. Straight through him. I realized the family I was defending wasn't defending me.
No teatrix. No tears.
Just a levee splitting. Reporters froze mid-typing. Spectators stopped whispering. Even the air held still. But the most important audience of all, Kody, wouldn't look at her. And that silence was louder than any objection he could have made. Harding stepped into the final strike. One last question, Mrs. Brown. Do you believe this was malicious intent or systemic neglect that benefited only a few? The room braced for one of two answers. Mary delivered a third. I believe intent stopped mattering the moment the outcome stayed the same. She continued, each word a scalpel. Whether it was planned or ignored, the result didn't change. Some of us were shareholders in love, but not shareholders in life. Even the reporters paused. That line didn't require translation. Harding closed her folder. The prosecution has no further questions. Judge Montgomery exhaled, a tiny, human breath slipping through her judicial armor. Defense may cross-examine. Kody's attorney rose, papers shuffling, hands trembling, but his confidence was already ash. Because you cannot cross-examine a woman out of the moment she stops gaslighting herself. He tried anyway. Mrs. Brown, you willingly signed every document, correct? Yes. So no fraud occurred. Mary didn't blink. A willing signature is not informed consent. The courtroom didn't gasp, it broke. Robin's hand flew to her mouth. Janelle closed her eyes, not in pain, but in acknowledgement. Christine exhaled like a lock finally clicking open. And Kody looked like a man watching the past rise from the dead to sue the present. The defense asked nothing further. Because there was nothing further. Judge Montgomery, the witness may step down. Mary stepped off the stand slowly, not dragging defeat behind her, but leaving it sitting in the witness chair where it belonged. She walked past the counsel tables, past the rows of watching eyes, past a history that once defined her. For the first time in decades, Mary walked like she was reclaiming a name that wasn't wife. The gavel cracked. Court will recess for 1 hour before recorded evidence is presented. Session 3 was over. But the Brown family mythology would not survive the next hour intact. Because what came next were the recordings, the texts, the voices, the proof that sounded like them. And once a courtroom hears truth in the speaker's own voice, it cannot be negotiated. When a family fractures in private, it echoes. But when it fractures in court, it resounds. The room returned from recess quieter than before. Not calm, not subdued. Alert. Everyone knew the next hour would shift the trial from argument to proof, from implication to exposure, from assumption to sound. A courtroom can argue with accusations. It can challenge emotion. But it cannot argue with a recorded voice confessing its own motive. Judge Montgomery re-entered. The room rose, out of respect or out of reflex. By now, no one could tell the difference. She sat, adjusted her papers, aligned her glasses. Her tone sharpened. Counsel, you may proceed. Miss Harding didn't approach the podium. She didn't need to. The ones who fight me, she said quietly, figure it out later. And then she pressed play. A feminine voice cut through the courtroom speakers. Christine's, cautious, measured. That doesn't sound like family, Kody. Kody's reply was sharper, colder. Family follows leadership, not logistics.
The room didn't gasp.
It constricted, like the walls themselves understood what had just been said. That wasn't theory. That was hierarchy, spoken aloud. Christine exhaled slowly. The kind of exhale that says, I am no longer shocked by disappointment. Janelle whispered, barely audible. Logistics. Funny word for survival. Robin recognized the voice, but she wished it belonged to someone else. Mary's face remained still, but her stillness no longer read surrender. It was documentation. Kody stared forward, jaw tight, blinking too slowly. His lawyer scrambled upright. Your Honor, context. The recording lacks context. Miss Harding didn't look at him. She didn't need to. This wasn't just a lawsuit about agency. This wasn't just about contracts. It was a trial about voice, ownership, and consent. And for the first time in the entire legal battle, Kody looked small. Not ashamed. Not apologetic. Small because hierarchy collapses when those beneath it finally speak. Miss Harding leveled the room. Your Honor, the prosecution submits. The question is no longer, did these conversations happen? The question now is, did the plaintiffs ever truly have the right to say no? The pause tightened like a fist. The judge leaned back slightly, absorbing the realignment. The defense looked weaponless. Kody looked cornered, exposed by the sound of his own voice. The wives, once arranged in hierarchy, now sat aligned, not by marriage, but by evidence. Judge Montgomery lifted her gavel. This court will recess. A mic drop in would form. But before it fell, Christine whispered, not at Kody, not at anyone. Let the record show. We finally spoke. Gavel hit. Session closed. And every person in that courtroom understood the same thing. There was no going back from sound. Contracts can be rewritten. Recorded truth? It plays forever. If Christine's testimony was ignition, and Mary's testimony fracture, then Robin's testimony would be the moment the smoke cleared. The real shape of the damage was revealed. Not the villain. Not the hero. The hinge. Because if this case were a building collapsing, Robin was the load-bearing beam no one expected would bend. The courtroom reconvened with a different temperature. People mistake silence for calm. It isn't. Silence is combustion holding its breath. Judge Montgomery returned. Eyes steady. Awareness heightened. The room rose automatically, respect, reflex, or both. The legal world held its breath, suspended between what had already been proven and what had yet to be admitted. Miss Harding stepped forward. The prosecution calls Mrs. Robin Brown to the stand. A ripple passed through the gallery. Electricity through water. Robin didn't rise immediately. The pause wasn't defiance. It was weight. She inhaled, steady, deliberate, and stood. Slow, ceremonial, threshold crossing.
No spotlight.
No music. Just expectation. Her heels clicked softly, precisely, each sound punctuating the silence. By the time she reached the witness chair, every opinion in the room had already projected onto her. Homewrecker. Enabler. Scapegoat. Beneficiary. Loyalist. Survivor. Strategist.
Victim.
Victor. Villain. But when her hand touched the Bible, none of it mattered. Only one title existed. Sworn witness. I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
No embellishment. No hesitation. No tremor.
Just a woman entering evidence. Miss Harding began without armor. Mrs. Brown, how long have you been part of this family unit? 12 years. And during those 12 years, how would you describe your understanding of the financial structure within the family? Robin exhaled.
Not emotion.
Calibration. I was told we operated as one family, one vision, one future, one financial ecosystem. Did you believe that to be true? Robin paused. I believed that was the intention. Miss Harding stepped closer. At what point did you learn the financial structure was not as unified as described? Robin looked down, not away. Not scared. Fact-checking the past, sifting truth from narrative. When the account stopped aligning with the story, I understood the logistics were segmented. The story was unity.
No theatrics.
Just accuracy. Were you aware of accounts receiving family-generated income that were not accessible or disclosed to all spouses? Yes. And who initiated those accounts? Robin's gaze remained forward. Factual. Controlled. They were initiated by Kody. Assigned to my household. The gallery gasped, arrows now visible. Kody straightened. Did you request those accounts be created? Robin shook her head once.
No.
Silence expanded. Did you benefit from them?
Yes. No excuse. No justification.
Just truth. Did you ever object? Robin met the question head-on. At first, I thought they represented responsibility. Later, yes. When I realized they represented imbalance, the courtroom didn't breathe. The shape of the truth had shifted. Do you believe these financial decisions created inequity among the family members? Yes. A single word, and the collapse of a blueprint. Christine closed her eyes. Release. Mary exhaled. Heard. Janelle nodded, confirmed. And Kody, he looked like a man discovering that loyalty has a lifespan. Were you ever instructed not to share financial information with the other wives?
Yes.
By Kody. Miss Harding pressed deeper. Did you ever feel your position carried advantages others were excluded from? Robin nodded. Small, irrevocable. Did you ask why those advantages were unevenly distributed? Her voice lowered, intimate with consequence. I asked once. And he said, someone has to stabilize the core. The courtroom recognized it, the recorded voice, the phrase, the hierarchy. Robin continued. I thought he meant emotional foundation. Kody flinched. I didn't know he meant financial hierarchy. A stranger gasped. Harding sharpened the intent. Mrs. Brown, be honest. Did you benefit because you demanded to or because the system rewarded compliance? Robin chose analysis over defense. I benefited because I didn't challenge the architecture. The others did. And the system doesn't reward disruption. Mary whispered, almost to herself. And silence was currency. Robin nodded, recognizing it. I spent it without realizing what it cost them. Judge Montgomery adjusted her glasses. Miss Harding moved into the most dangerous territory. Moral clarity. Mrs. Brown, do you believe Kody intended to divide or to lead? Robin's answer was brave. Risking alliances. Risking narrative. I believe he intended to lead. But leadership without accountability becomes possession. And possession always divides. Every lawyer in the room should have written that down. Miss Harding nodded once. And one final question before the defense cross-examined. Robin braced, steady, unflinching, preparing for a reckoning. If you could speak directly to the other wives here under oath, what would you say? Not a legal question, but everything after betrayal deserves truth, not just a ruling. Robin turned toward the women, the original table, Christine, Mary, Janelle. Her voice was raw, but level. I thought protecting one person was protecting the family. I didn't understand that protecting one person from the family would destroy it. A tear formed, but did not fall. If apologizing could fix the math, I would. But it can't. So all I can give you now is truth, not allegiance. Christine nodded once. Not forgiveness, acknowledgement. Mary exhaled, unclenching. Janelle whispered softly. Truth is a start. The defense rose for cross-examination. Kody's attorney approached, rehearsed, clipped. Mrs. Brown, isn't it true you participated willingly in all family financial decisions? Robin, I participated willingly. I was not informed equally. Isn't it true you never challenged Mr. Brown's leadership? Robin, I didn't know I was allowed to. You held advantages the others did not. Isn't that correct? Robin, lethal in honesty. Yes. And now that you're questioned for it, you denounce it. Convenient, isn't it? Robin answered like a verdict. I don't denounce the benefit. I denounce the blindness. The attorney sat, defeated, not by argument, but by sincerity. Judge Montgomery acknowledged her testimony. Robin stepped down. This time, the audience didn't watch her shoes. They watched the space she left behind. The court recessed, a moment for truth to settle like water seeping into cracks. When it reconvened, Miss Harding approached not with papers, but with the most lethal weapon a courtroom could hold, a spreadsheet. Cold. Neutral. Unarguable. She called Mr. Daniel Grant, forensic financial analyst, certified in tracing marital assets, organizational funds, and multi-entity household finances. Grant, I analyzed the complete financial structure of the Brown family over the past 10 years. Harding, did you encounter difficulty obtaining disclosures?
Grant. Yes.
Multiple accounts tied to family earnings were not reported. They had to be traced indirectly. Gasps moved through the room. Harding drilled. How many accounts did you analyze? 24, Grant replied. How many jointly authorized by all 4 wives? 3. And how many controlled only by Mr. Kody Brown and Mrs. Robin Brown? 9. Of total family revenue over the decade, $4. $2 to $4. $9 million. How much was shared openly? Approximately 43%. And the rest? Private allocations, primarily to Mr. Brown and Mrs. Robin Brown's household. Harding, was this inequity accidental?
Grant. No.
Design or neglect functioning as design? And was this a family or an infrastructure? Grant. Steady. An infrastructure shaped like a family. The courtroom absorbed it. Infrastructures don't love, they extract. The defense tried CPR on evidence long dead. Kody whispered to his lawyer, "This isn't how it happened." His lawyer, "This is how it's documented." Harding closed the frame. The plaintiffs didn't merely experience emotional inequity. They lived under financial hierarchy while believing it was partnership. The gavel struck. Court would resume for closing statements. Outside, headlines waited. Inside, truth had reshaped reality. Christine spoke first. Not to the judge, not to the room, but to the version of herself silenced too long. When I believed my value came from what I could carry, cook more, parent harder, forgive faster, I was wrong. Love shouldn't be earned. Equality shouldn't be negotiated. I left because I fell out of permission, not love. For the first time, I deserve to own something that belongs to me. Janelle, calm, precise. Shared responsibility means fairness. I contributed, tracked, invested. And this is what I was left with. Not repayment of money, but of belief. Leadership without equity is dependency. Mary, quiet, reclaiming herself. I spent decades defending this family. And all that time, I never asked who was defending me. I am here as the last version of myself, whoever seeks permission to exist. Robin, measured, accountable. My mistake was silence. Silence protected the system, not the family. I acknowledge the women I should have stood beside sooner. Then Kody, the voice of control, now exposed. I did what I thought was best. I protected the vision, the family. I gave everything. I didn't know how to lead without control. I didn't know love could exist without hierarchy. Judge Montgomery. Closing statements complete. Court will convene tomorrow for the verdict. The gavel struck, not punishment, but closure. The women rose, separately, parallel, sovereign.
Not wives.
Not rivals. For lives liberated from a structure built on control and inequity. Kody remained seated, realizing leadership and control diverge only when legally defined. Outside, Christine whispered, "The hardest part wasn't leaving. It was unlearning the permission I thought I needed to stand." Janelle, my balance sheet finally makes sense. Mary, my name feels like mine again. Robin, loyalty without fairness is surrender. No cinematic music.
No dramatic gestures.
Just acknowledgement. The verdict didn't give life. It stopped taking it. Truth didn't set them free. It removed the cage. They had already outgrown it. And in that quiet, the 4 women owned themselves.